Hey, what's going on, baseball fans? This episode of the Going Yard podcast is powered by Baseball Lifestyle 101, where it's not just a game, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah, if you're looking for the hottest shirts, hats, shoes, I mean, they got these incredible boat shoes that, they look like baseballs on your feet. It's pretty incredible. Got some incredible baseball jewelry. You can get your number, your favorite number of your player, yourself. You can get a bat cross necklace, a catcher's mask. And then also, Dan, one thing they got going on this week, for opening day is a free shipping domestically across the United States. No promo code needed. So free shipping on all of your orders, no amount needed. Usually it's $100 to get free shipping. It is free shipping on all orders domestically in the United States.
And if free shipping is not already awesome, let's save 10% on that order by going to BL101.com. Enter the promo code GYP10 for 10% off of your entire order at checkout. That's BL101.com for 10% off. Let's talk about this interview. Today we talked to Coach Dean Wilson. You can find him on Instagram at Coach Dean Wilson. We've been following this guy for quite some time now. Love what he posts. Love what he's all about. Very knowledgeable baseball guy. We talk about his growing up and going from high school to college, and then from college to playing from JUCO to D1, from D1 to professional ball in independent leagues.
Yeah, a lot of insight, honestly, here on what it's like to go on that journey and what's valued and gained through that experience of going to JUCO and playing independent ball. And I mean, I loved some of his stuff as a coach, and we got into a lot of analytical stuff kind of at the end of it that you're seeing at the big league level. So a lot of good information on a lot of fronts here for the casual baseball fan, or even the full-fledged baseball coach, and then the baseball player as well.
Yeah, and I also love what he would tell himself as a teenager, and make sure you listen to that part of it. For anybody right now in that high school time of their life, their career, make sure you listen to this advice. It's very simple advice, but it's practical, and you can use it, and hopefully it'll make a change for you so that you can enjoy the process going forward. So enjoy this episode. Hey, Dean, what's up, man? Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. We love watching what you do on social media. We've been following you for a while now, and definitely looking forward to this interview.
Yeah, no, I've been checking you guys out for a while as well, so the feeling is mutual for sure.
Yeah, Dean, I mean, I've been dying to kind of talk to you, get into the mind of the coach a little bit. We've been talking to some players and stuff recently, so to get to talk to a coach again, it's always exciting for me being a high school coach, well, former high school coach now, I guess. But, before we jump into that stuff that far down the road, if you can, Dean, can you take us a little walk down memory lane and give us your baseball story a little bit, how, your high school years and what they were like, and then that transition of getting recruited and ultimately going to college?
Right. Okay. So I grew up, I grew up in South Jersey, small town called Barrington. I went to Haddon Heights High School. After high school, I actually wasn't really heavily recruited out of high school. So I ended up going to junior college, Brookdale Community College in Lincroft, up kind of more by the North Shore in New Jersey. And I spent 2 years there. I was an All-American my sophomore year there, and then I got a scholarship to Oral Roberts out here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is where I am now. Between college and now, I played 2 years of independent baseball, and now I'm into coaching. So, I mean, I think that obviously the high school aspect of it it's kind of come full circle, obviously, now that I'm coaching in high school. But those were very formative years, obviously, as a person. That's kind of the experience everybody has in high school. But as a baseball player as well, I think a lot of the things that I learned, I guess, about myself and just about obviously being a leader as a senior captain on my high school team, so these are some of the things I kind of carry into coaching now. Because for my high school team, my junior year, we won our first conference baseball championship in 50 years. It was exactly 50 years. And so that, to this day is one of the prouder moments I've had. And it's kind of, in my mind, playing for the program or playing for the school, things like that, have always been very important to me. And I think winning that championship kind of set all that in motion. That's always been something I've looked to do is, play or coach or whatever it is, kind of pour yourself into the team or the program or organization that you're with. And so that's been a theme throughout my baseball life.
Gotcha. Now, can you talk about the power of playing at a JUCO school? I mean, because there's a lot of people, we talk about it every week here with the interviews that we have. There's a lot of players out there that think they're in high school. If they don't make it to a D1 school, then what's the point of even playing? Can you talk about the power of that experience at a JUCO college, playing this couple years there, and what that did for your game, what that did for your confidence, and how that helped you progress down the road?
Yeah, gladly. To this day, I tell everybody that I can really that JUCO was the best decision I made baseball-wise in my life. Like I said, not heavily recruited. I mean, really barely recruited at all, short of a few schools. But certainly not to the level that I ended up getting afterwards. So, I mean, for me, the benefit of JUCO, you get 2 extra years, obviously, to develop. It's the cost is far less, so you get all your gen eds taken care of for a fraction of the cost that you would at a big time 4-year school. And other than that, I just think the bond is just different. I think anybody, obviously all of my teammates will say it, but it's the tightest knit team you'll have, because I think that as you get further up in levels, just the dynamic of the teams are different. In Division I baseball, obviously there's a team sense. You have your fall and spring seasons, but guys are trying to get drafted. They're trying to get their playing time, whatever the case may be. You get to pro ball, and that's small fish in an ocean, and it's a scramble, trying to climb the ladder. So I think it's a nice kind of middle ground between high school, because it's obviously a higher level than high school, but also for me it's just a little more tight knit, because I think obviously it's a little less plush. You have to grind through a little bit more. It's just a little less glamorous, I guess, and I think that develops kind of a camaraderie between the guys. And I still talk to most of my JUCO teammates, all the guys I live with. I still talk to them to this day, like pretty frequently. For me, I just think it's kind of it's for a lot of reasons. I think obviously, like I said, it's cheaper to get your gen eds done. It's an opportunity. You get 2 years to develop. Your draft options are always still available in your freshman and sophomore year, where they wouldn't be at an NCAA or a 4-year school. So I think, and I was skeptical at first as well. I had to be convinced, because I had that same mindset that a lot of people have. Like, if I don't go D1, then whatever. But I mean, I don't think I would have gone D1 had I not gone to JUCO. So it was one of the best things I ever could have done.
Now, real quick, I kind of want to ask, do you think jumping in and getting a chance to play right away was ultimately what led to your success? A lot of times you end up going to, the D1 school. You're one of 40 to 50 guys on a roster. Freshman year, unless you're really a breakout star, you're going to kind of sit and wait your turn and be a situational player. You might pinch run, pinch hit. Do you think getting those opportunities early on, as opposed to just being like a practice player, is what really helped propel you to get to Division I?
Oh, 100%. I think the benefit of, getting 150, 200 at bats, fresh out of high school, as opposed to sitting and not playing for a year, not seeing pitching or game situations. I think that's a game changer, because I think, you kind of stay in the groove of playing your seasons, but also it's just seeing the next level of competition. You know what I mean? It's kind of, at least in junior college, kind of bridges the gap a little bit. Like I said, it's better than high school. Sometimes, I'm not going to say it's always necessarily worse than Division I, because I know some JUCO programs that would beat up on some Division I programs. Just
yeah,
they're out there. There are some powerhouses. So, but generally speaking, it's a nice kind of middle ground, just in all aspects. And so I think being able to show up and play every day is a huge factor for anyone's development. So, and again, I guess it depends on the guy, but for me, being a guy that I think what mostly held me back was the physicality of my game. I was undersized. I was a late bloomer. I graduated high school. I was about 140 pounds, And so being able to refine my game while having 2 extra years to kind of develop physically that was a saving grace for my career, really, because I really don't know what would have happened if I hadn't gone to JUCO, if I had gone to a different program out of high school. I don't know what it would have looked like. I just know that going to JUCO and getting those 2 years to develop, and those 2 years to play every day, that changed my whole career, to be honest.
Yeah. Now, if you can, what was the biggest lesson you learned while playing at the college level? What was the struggles? The time management? Was it the physicality of the game? Was it what was the the biggest lesson learned basically that helped prepare you to get to the professional level?
I think it was more finding the balance, being able to compartmentalize a little bit. Once I got to Oral Roberts after junior college, I was still small. I was lean, and I wasn't exceptionally strong, but I was a 21-year-old. I was a little more mature physically. So I think really what it was is you're going to be exposed to a lot of failure at a high level. It's just going to happen. I came from a junior college. I was a first team All-American. I hit 4, whatever. And then you show up in your first fall, and everybody there was the best guy you faced the year before. And so just, coming to grips with, hey, you're not that guy anymore. Like, you're going to have to come in and earn your stripes and take some lumps as well. And the learning curve is still there. So I think being able to just deal with that, because, that at a certain level, good players, you do well in high school, you go to JUCO, you do well in JUCO. And at a certain point, you're going to hit a wall where everybody's as good as you, and you're going to have to find a way to continue to improve. And I think that was the biggest thing for me, being able to kind of look failure in the face and kind of stare down the barrel at it and continue to work and not get discouraged. And to be honest, it's something I struggled with early, because, you're always one of the better players as you climb, and then eventually you're not. And it's like you kind of lose your identity for a little bit, and being able to kind of find who you are and leave baseball at baseball and handle your other stuff and come back and not be too discouraged to improve. I think that was probably the biggest thing I learned.
Now, Dean, you were shortstop, correct? Or
correct.
All infield?
Yeah.
I'm just curious. We love asking this question. Who was one of those shortstops? I know you said you were a lean guy. Weren't always the biggest guy. Who was one of those shortstops that you emulated, or just infielders in general, that you liked their game, how they played it, and you tried to emulate that even as a kid going up through high school and further?
Ozzie Smith. That's an easy one. Yeah. Ozzie Smith. Granted, he wasn't the biggest guy either, but just the way he approached it, he was hyper athletic about it. I think, he was one of the guys who, kind of reshaped the way the game was played. He played through everything and throw balls on the run and kind of flip balls behind his back. And he added an athletic element to it that wasn't there before. And I think, me not being able to kind of sit back and play 3 long hops and then throw 97 across, I had to kind of improvise and use my feet. And so I think watching Ozzie Smith do it showed me, little guys can go get it too. And, it's not always just a big man's game, which I guess gave me hope as well, more than anything. But,
right.
Watching him, granted, he was before my time, but, my dad introduced me to him and I watched him do his thing. But yeah, just the way just how smooth he was and how athletic he was in a position where a lot of guys teach it kind of step by step, block, choppy kind of motions. Everything was smooth and fluid, and kind of made me fall in love with playing shortstop in the first place. So yeah, Ozzie Smith.
Can you do a backflip?
I could back when I played.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Now, who are a couple shortstops now? I know you're in tune to the game today. Who's a couple shortstops now you think kids should be looking at?
I like Andrelton Simmons. I think his game is not only super polished, but I think he plays with a lot of feel, more so than other guys. I think Francisco Lindor is special for sure, and I think Javi Baez might have the most feel out of any infielder. Granted, he's not a shortstop every day, but I don't know. I think the game just moves slower for him. So I think being able to kind of tap into that mindset where he knows where he's going before it even happens, I think that's important for kids to look at. I would say those 3 are probably my top.
I would say Javi Baez is crazy, the level that he plays at 3 positions and not just one. There's
it's hard.
He makes every play at third base like he's Manny Machado. He makes every play at shortstop like he's Lindor. He makes every play, at second base like. Altuve, or if not better, then I mean, he's a plus defender at 3 positions, not just one. That's what's crazy about him.
Yeah, and I think people underestimate how hard it is to be high level at more than one position. They're completely different animals. Like, all the basic things, I guess, are technically the same, but all the angles, all the throws, all the reads, all the hops, everything is different. It's 3 completely different animals. And to master even one is hard. Mm-hmm. And then to be good at 2 or 3, and some of these super utilities that play all 3 outfield spots, all the infield spots as well, I think that's really underestimated. And you see a lot of teams utilizing guys like that because you see how valuable it is, and it's really difficult to do.
Yeah. Now, can you talk about your professional career, how it started? Was it a walk-on kind of situation, or were you picked up, or someone noticed you in college? How did that work out, and what was that experience like?
So basically what happened is I was in my senior year at Oral Roberts, and we were in the NCAA regional. We were at Oklahoma State, and I assume this is what happened. The first time I heard of anybody being interested was after this, so I assume that's when it happened. But I made a couple good plays. They were like televised games, and one of the coaches on staff for this independent team in the Frontier League, I guess, had known my head coach at ORU. They had communicated, and they just got it hooked up. And obviously, I went undrafted, and I signed on with them. And so, again, like I said, dealing with the failure was tough because, I spent 2 weeks after the regional was over until I reported. And so I didn't see pitching for 2 weeks or whatever. And I showed up, and just dealing, again, it's just a step up. So trying to adjust to the speed of the game, mm-hmm. while simultaneously getting a feel for a new city, moving into a host house, hanging out with, 25 complete strangers, trying to, get to know people and stuff. So, overall it's a great experience. I would do it again in a heartbeat, obviously, but it does come with its own set of challenges. And so, I'm not, I'm not above experiencing those that happen to me like it happens to everybody else.
If you can, for us, Dean, can you jump into a little bit about the lifestyle of an independent league baseball player? You kind of just brought up living in a house with a bunch of guys, but, the bus travel, the meals, working out, staying in good shape. Like, it may not be as glamorous as the dudes on on MLB, but, it's mm-hmm. still, something you got to work through. And ultimately, if you want to be successful, you got to be able to push through it, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, indie ball is not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. I mean, minor league baseball in general is not for the faint of heart. It's a grind for sure. I mean, what it ends up looking like, you have the same schedule game-wise. You show up however many hours before the game, you take BP, you go home. You're not home till 11:30, whatever it is. And you wake up and do it again the next day. The bus travels. The bus travels were the toughest thing for me, probably making the adjustment travel-wise, because in college, we would just bus during the day because in college you play kind of your Tuesday weekday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday weekend series. You got all those days in between to travel, but in indie ball, we play a 7:00 game, be done at 10, take a shower, jump on the bus, and drive through the night 11 hours. And you share a seat because you're a rookie. Mm-hmm. And so you can't even lean the seat back because the 4-year guy behind you doesn't want you to lean back on his knees,
right?
And so, you're sitting straight up for 11 hours. You got to go play a game the next night. So that's definitely not fun. But again, like I said, I would do it again in a heartbeat. Like, it's not even a question to me. So while it is, it's extremely unglamorous, but I think the experiences you get, those times when you're grinding through with these guys, and everybody knows that it's not always fun, and everybody always knows that you'd be making more money doing a desk job, or whatever the case may be. You'd be making more money doing lessons most of the time. It kind of builds that camaraderie, and it is an experience, and you make friends, and you have connections that last forever. And it really, although it is hard, and sometimes you do sit there like, what am I doing? It really is one of the most rewarding things you can do.
Right. What would you say the biggest change as in terms of the game is the speed much different than playing college ball at a D1 level? Is it obviously the lifestyle's a lot different because you don't have the school helping you out and keeping the schedule and everything like that. But in terms of the actual game, what do you think was the biggest change?
I mean, the speed, yeah, the speed for sure. I think more than that was the adjustment of playing every day. That was tough because, again, like I said, in college you play 4 weeks or 4 games a week. Sorry, play Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe mixing a Wednesday in there every once in a while. But my second year when I was in Lancaster, like you guys were talking about, we played 13 games in 13 days, got a day off, and 13 straight days of games again for months. And so, not really having time to catch your breath was big. So finding ways to kind of create time to get your work in and to create time to kind of take a mental break and relax your mind when you really don't have that time was crucial. And that was something that I had to get adjusted to, was just playing every day. The speed of the game, sure. But that was something I was prepared for. I wasn't prepared necessarily for the mental toll, or not the mental toll, sorry, the physical toll of playing every day. That was something that was a grind in itself.
Right.
What were some of the things you did off the field, real quick, Dean? What were did you read books? Did you just listen to music? Did you write a journal? I mean, what were some of the things you did to break up that monotony of 13 games in 13 days and pregame BP and infield, outfield, and the overall routine? Baseball players are creatures of habits. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, what did you do to
Yeah.
kind of break the habit a little bit? When you had the chance.
Yeah, watch a lot of Netflix, to be honest. Watch a lot of Netflix. You call home when you can. My now wife, we were engaged at the time when I was in Lancaster, and we were, she was pretty much planning our wedding by herself, and I was doing what I could, but I was 1,500 miles away.
Right.
And so, you call home as much as you can. I kind of worked it into my schedule, like after BP, before I got back out on the field, I'd call her, and so that helped. But yeah, I mean, watch some TV, relax, play some cards. I mean, it's not really much you can do when you're in a clubhouse for 7 hours a day or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But you find your ways. You find things that you find satisfaction and peace in sometimes the smallest things, and it's funny how that happens because it is a chaotic environment for the most part. Obviously, the guys you see in the big leagues, they're accustomed to it, and they make it look easy. They make everything look easy, but sometimes it's a chaotic environment. Especially coming up, you don't know whether you're going to play that day, and if you are, what position, and where you're going to hit, or whatever the case is. So I mean, there's a bunch of things you can do, but yeah, I tried to not think about it too much and just try and watch TV or just listen to music, like I said, or call home.
So let's jump into this a little bit here now, Dean, and transition, into when you got into coaching,
Okay.
and what that was like, at first, and did you have plans on doing something other than that, or did it just kind of happen naturally through doing lessons, or things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I actually had plans or designs on coaching necessarily. I think it was something I thought I might want to do, but I didn't have anything lined up. I was just doing lessons, trying to just figure out what I was doing. I was, doing lessons, substitute teaching at the time, just trying to get some money together because, I just finished playing. I have no work experience, so I'm trying to find a job somewhere. And then I just got a call from one of my former coaches from Oral Roberts. He knew a guy who was looking for a guy to help him out coaching his high school team, and I decided to do that, and it was the best decision I ever made. And so now I have my career path. I know what I want to do, and so I'm very thankful for that. So it was a pretty seamless transition, but it kind of came out of nowhere. It wasn't really something I was expecting to do or looking to do at that time.
Now, you are currently the head coach at Cassia Hall Prep, and what would you say is the most common challenges or flaws that you're seeing from new players coming up, that come from the tournament ball type of play day in and day out? All of a sudden, they get to you. What are some of those common flaws that you're finding with new players that if they would have just learned this stuff earlier, they would have had a better start? What are some of those things that you're finding?
Overall, I mean, I think kind of a lot of the things we talked about in terms of just getting accustomed to the speed of the game and things like that. But overall, I think being able to kind of develop some sort of mental edge. I think my guys do a pretty good job. We have a pretty good core of leaders, so it's not necessarily an issue I see with them at the moment, but with a lot of just young athletes. High school kids are pretty inconsistent just in general. It's a really, really weird time for them, and their brains are developing, and, hormones are going crazy. And so it's a really, really tough time for them in general. So they're kind of up and down as it is.
Right.
And so trying to channel that in a baseball sense, which is a game that just kind of tears your heart out like every once in a while.
Yeah.
That's a challenge in itself. So I think being able to develop some sort of mental strength, mental toughness, whatever you want to call it, being able to understand that this game is going to be hard. You can't take this game home. You can't bring home to the field. And if you're able to kind of separate those things, kind of like we talked about, it was an adjustment compartmentalizing from JUCO to D1 to pro ball. The earlier you can learn to compartmentalize and kind of separate your game from your life and your life from the game, it only serves you better in baseball and in life.
Right.
Now, Dean, one thing as a high school coach, I just kind of got out of it a little bit. Just this season, my son made it as a freshman now in high school, so I stepped away. One thing I want to ask, because it's kind of different in most places, with multi-sport athletes, how much time out of season do you get with kids? How much time do you get, whether it's the fall, the off season, and what do some of those workouts that you have entail? Because, it's a kind of a debate. Kids should specialize in one sport. Kids should play multiple sports. I mean, it all kind of, I guess, comes down to the varsity coach and what they kind of believe the mindset is. But then, kind of also, I guess, the community you live in and what the state of the football program is in or soccer program is in. So what is that like in your area, and what's that dynamic like?
Well, in my area, what ends up happening is we get them from December through when the season's over, and then we do a summer league through June. So basically from December through June, I get them. And then that off season, I'm allowed 1 hour of baseball activity a day, with the exception of various, dead periods, dead weeks throughout the summer and stuff like that. And the problem, we're a small school. We have a small program, and most of our guys also play football. So I don't get that much time with them in the off seasons, but when I do, generally, we started doing it this year. We did a lot more of the drive line, kind of the plyo care, things like that, just to keep arms in shape. Because in the past we've had a lot of guys, they come in, they want to start rushing in and start, throwing gas as soon as they get in, and they get banged up and they got to shelf it for a while. So I think generally now that I'm the head coach and I can kind of implement things the way I want to implement them, a focus of these off-season workouts have been more just improving the movement quality of the athletes and being able to kind of set a foundation of functional strength. That's what we spent most of our time leading up to, and then in December doing. We did a lot of kind of plyometric, like kind of jumping, cutting workouts, just strengthening kind of explosive power. We did a lot of the drive line, plyo care, things like that. Because I think if we try to do too much, and obviously while they're playing other sports, it's going to, one, burn them out, two, it's going to risk injury. Because, I'm all for playing multiple sports, but I think there's a balance to it. Mm-hmm. I think you have to understand what sport you're in, and you have to kind of obviously prioritize that. If a kid's in football, I'm not going to make them skip football to come, hit off the tee for an hour with me or whatever, because that's all the time we get. But we spend a lot of time prioritizing functional strength and being able to kind of move well, because granted, football is a different skill set. It's different movements than in baseball. So if I can ingrain just a little bit of baseball movement before we get to baseball, I think that serves to kind of benefit our athletes a little bit once they get to us.
Yeah. Now you talked a little bit about, the grind of when you played, and even taking you back to high school and college. I'm not sure when that aha moment happened for you with the mental part of the game. But can you tell us how you were able to keep the mental game in check yourself as a player, and then now as a coach? You have mentioned about high school kids. Right now it's a tough time for teenage boys to try to get them to understand things, let alone deal with this game that has to deal so much with failure. How do you how did you do it yourself as a player, and then how, as a coach, do you direct these players, these young players, and help them with their mental game as well?
Yeah, I think in JUCO was kind of the time when it started to click for me. Granted, I wasn't always very good at it. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm some kind of Zen master, but I think I began to understand that it was important in JUCO because, like I said, it was an adjustment. My freshman season went okay. It was a pretty good year, but it wasn't, where I wanted it to be. And I think the big thing for me was I was a small, young kid playing against, 20, 21-year-old grown men. And I was getting handled a little bit just because I wasn't big enough. But more than that, it started to become a thing where I was just pressing. Like I was just trying to get 2 hits every at bat to make up for lost time. And it just kind of snowballed on me. And so I think my sophomore year, I went into it understanding that, look, it's not always going to be great. I'm not always going to go 4 for 4. But you got to kind of keep your head down and go. You got to keep plugging. And I got to a point that season when I was able to kind of turn my negative voice off. Like you have a really good week and you're, 15 for 25 or whatever. And you're like, oh, I'm going great. And that little voice in the back of your head's like, oh, well, it's not going to last. I was able to kind of shut that voice off. Like, no, shut up. I'm good. And, like it's going to continue because I'm working this way and this is who I am. And, I was able to keep the positive voice fed more than the negative voice. And that was something that kind of continued. And granted, like I said, I wasn't always the best at it, but in JUCO, I kind of found my mental process. I found what worked for me when it started to go awry, how I was able to bring it back. And so I think, like I said, I didn't find out till I was 20, and then I didn't play. I played for 4 more years after that. And so I think it's important. That's kind of what I instill in my athletes now is you got to keep your mind strong. You got to keep your mind right because at the end of the day, your body's not, especially when we get 35, 40 games in at the end of May, whatever it is, your body's not going to feel good. Nobody's body feels good then, but your mind's got to be strong. You got to keep yourself in the right frame of mind to be able to perform at the highest level. Because if your mind is weak, your body will drag your mind down because your body's tired. But if your mind's strong, your mind will pull your body up and you'll play up. And that's kind of what I tell them. And, sometimes I get frustrated as a coach and, like all coaches do. And so I'm not perfect, but that's what I found. And I think that's mainly what I stress to them from the mental side.
Now, Dean, I want to ask, who are some of the coaches you turn to? Your influences. I know you've done some posting about, like Bobby Dickerson and different coaches at the big league level. Who are the ones you turn to look for information, new innovative ways, new ways to think, and then pass that information on to your players and apply it at practices?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I kind of go off campus, so to speak, for a lot of my mental stuff. I really like the way Gino Auriemma with UConn women's basketball. I just love the way he talks to his athletes. I think his approach to the game is phenomenal, even though it's a different game. He's very keen on, look, we got to do this the right way. We don't get – because they are who they are. They win championships every year, Yeah. But he says because of that, we got to be better. We got to hold ourselves to a higher standard because of who we are. I think the way he settles for nothing, like nothing slides. Everyone's accountable at every moment. Anybody can get it at any time. I think that's kind of the ultimate standard in peak performance. If you're the best, why are you giving me 75% effort? Like if you're the best, go be the best. That's how that works. So I like him. I was always a fan of obviously the late Augie Garrido. I think he was. He got it. He just got it. He's a guy who loved his athletes. He loved the game. He respected the game, but he kind of used the game as an instrument to teach life. And I granted I'm 26 years old, so I don't have as much hindsight as he did, but I like to think that that's kind of what my approach has become. These lessons you learn in baseball will ultimately serve you in life. So, and then obviously like the Bobby Dickersons and things like that. I think there are a lot of guys on social media who teach, obviously, whether it's infield or hitting or the mental side of the game. I mean, to narrow it down to any one person, I think we'd be doing a disservice to how many truly brilliant people bring value to kind of the coaches all around the country, really.
Now, real quick, just to stick with Gino there, he has that one great line in his one video about, you wouldn't be here if you weren't talented. You know what I mean? And
right.
I know my experience with some of the high school baseball players where, you get that sophomore that has talent that should be a varsity player as a sophomore, but they seem to get, the varsity coach is looking at me and they play a little tight. They don't play as loose as they do maybe in practice or when they're with their buddies on the JV team or they're afraid to take the seniors position. You know what I mean? Like those are some of the things. Do you see that happen with some of the athletes with some of the baseball players that you're around?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and that's one of the first things I kind of go after. Guys will press, especially high school guys, because like I said, it's a difficult time. It's tough for them to be even keel. It's difficult. That's why the guys who are in high school stand out so much. But you see a guy, who presses like that, or he's worried about it, and I say it almost daily. Like guys are stressed. I don't know what I'm doing. No, and I say, well, are you bad at baseball? Are you a bad baseball player? And they go, no. And I say, well, then what are you worried about? If you're bad, then definitely worry. Like if you stink at baseball, you should worry.
Right.
But if you're a good player, then just go play. Like you don't have to be better than you are, because what you are is already good enough.
Trust your abilities.
And then you kind of see that wave of relief, like, oh, I guess I am good. Okay, fine. Maybe I'll try this. And you see it, you can actually like see them breathing, like they're not holding their breath their entire at bat or whatever the case is. So I think just, I find it difficult to like chew a guy for being nervous or whatever. I think my job is not to just yell at everything. I think, that's a guy who wants to do well and is afraid of not doing well.
Right.
So I got to show him that not doing well is not the end of the world, and then on top of that, you can't be afraid of not doing well. And then secondly, you can't let being afraid of not doing well affect your ability to actually do well. Like you can't, it's very cliche, and people say, things like you can't let the fear of striking out stop you from digging into the box or whatever the case is. But I mean, it's really true. If you're going to sit here and think of all the reasons why you shouldn't, then you're going to get passed. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And so I think for young guys who, whether they're more afraid of success than failure, because success is stressful. There's expectations that comes with success. And so I think guys that are afraid of either success or failure, or guys who don't want to step on toes or whatever the case is. I mean, it's a kind of a metaphor for life, really. You can't be afraid. If you want it, you have to go get it. Like eventually you're going to take somebody's job at some point. It's going to happen. And if you're a good enough player, you're going to do it a couple times.
Right.
And that's just what comes with it. And people understand, like, you can't be afraid. You're not going to be everybody's friend. Like, you can't be in it to make everybody happy, because it's just not going to be the way it works. You're not going to make your girlfriend happy because you're hitting extra after practice. You're not going to make the guy who's playing behind you happy because you took his job, and you're not going to make the coach happy if you're sandbagging it to keep one of the other two happy. So, you're just going to have to pick what your priorities are and not be afraid to kind of go get what you want.
That is fantastic advice. That is really good. I'm glad we have all this on recording here. So no, that was perfect. I don't want to go any further without mentioning your Instagram. We get a lot from it, and I know a lot of players all around the world who are on Instagram that can access Instagram. They can see all these great things you're doing. Can you talk about what you're doing at Coach Dean Wilson on Instagram, some of the things you're doing on there with your drills, but also if you could also answer this question as well, because I saw your facility that you're using looks fantastic, and I want to know, you had talked about some of the, while you have those multiple sport athletes, you like to get some of that baseball strength training in there. So I'm just curious, what types of things are you doing in terms of that part of it with the the functional movements for baseball? I'm just curious of if you could name a couple of things you're doing there.
Sure. Well, to start with my Instagram, I think really what that was a function of is me just wanting to talk baseball and not having people to talk baseball with. I think
Right.
It's just one of those things where I see videos or I see something on TV. I'm like, man, I wish I could just talk to like somebody, call my dad and talk about it or whatever. So I was like, I'm going to start an Instagram and just start posting stuff and just blather on about whatever I'm thinking about. And so I think, my page is not necessarily specific to any one kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Naturally, I'm more of an infield guy just because I played infield and that's kind of what I was best at. So I do a lot of that. But also I think it's important to stress the mental game. It's important to stress, taking pride and taking stock of your own career. And so I try and mix it up as much as I can. I get a little hitting in there, a little bit of mentality in there, a little bit of infield in there. So I hope it brings some value. To be honest, it's not a thing where I'm trying to promote myself or, further any of my professional endeavors in any way. I think it's just a fun thing to do. I just love talking baseball, and it kind of gives me an outlet to do that. And if some people take some value from it, then, that's icing on the cake for me. As it relates to what we do inside, we actually don't have our own, so we kind of freelance. We use some different places, and all the places we use are very, very generous and allowing us to use space in their facilities. So yeah, when we're inside, it's tough because I don't want to just do eyewash drills and things that aren't really going to help us or translate into the game. So I try to, at least when I'm doing it with infielders, get as much footwork, get as much range and reaction going as I can with that. It's tough to hit realistic ground balls in a room that's not as big as an infield. It's just difficult to do. So being able to kind of just roll the ball and force them to move in ways that they would move in the game, I found that to be beneficial for us. And as well as, just hitting off, I'll turn, like at 3-wheel machines, like kind of the hack attacks and things like that. I'll just juice the bottom wheel just to kind of get some legitimate ride like a real fastball would. And, you just do the best you can. We've battled some weather to this point. We started scrimmages February 14th, I believe. And I think we've been outside like a handful of days since that started, like maybe 4 or 5 times we've been outside. So we've really been trying to emphasize kind of game-like reps and being able to translate what we work on into the games. So that's been a challenge, but I think that's what we do a lot of. And then about your question relating to functional strength, during December, like I said, we did our drive line, our plyo care and our band work every day. My pitching coach did a great job writing up a throwing program and a long toss program. And then at the end of practice, we would do just something I took from my junior college coach. He would call them plyos, like plyometrics. And what it would be is just a lot of jumping, sprinting, cutting, things like that, throwing some medicine balls around. Just a way to kind of be outside and be in open space and be able to kind of just be athletic and move in an athletic way. And we saw some benefit. We saw some better bat speed, some better pop with the bats. The arm strength was better. So I think just being able to, even if you don't have the space, even if you don't have as much room because you're inside or you don't have the facilities or whatever the case is, I think really being mindful of how realistic what you're working on is and how game-like your work is, I think is extremely important. And, we try our best. I'm not saying we always nail it, but we do the best we can, my coaches and I, to make sure what we do with our guys is going to be something that's going to allow them to have success in the game, or something that happens in the game. They'll think back and go, oh, we've been working on that. We were inside. I was doing that the other day. And it'll help them kind of connect the dots there between their preparation and the game.
Right.
I hope I got all that.
Oh, yeah, you did.
You did?
Okay. And as you were responding to it, I'm like, man, I did ask him like 10 questions there, didn't I?
No, I just wanted to make sure I covered them all.
No, you did. Perfect.
Oh man, that was fantastic. Honestly, I mean, I'm just sitting there listening to all that. It's incredible. One thing that we kind of like to ask, and I think you've kind of touched on a little bit, but I'm hoping you dive a little deeper here, is if you could go back and tell your teenage self, 14, 15, 16 year old self, anything, any advice that you would give yourself. Would you do anything different, or what would you do, and what would you tell yourself?
From a baseball standpoint, I'm going to answer this 2 different ways. From a baseball standpoint, I would say just enjoy the ride. Just enjoy it. Because I was a guy who thought a lot and who stressed myself out a ton because I just had this like physical, like carnal desire to just be great at everything. And it was like way too much, and I'm like way too competitive, and it's annoying to everybody around me. But just enjoy it, because I don't necessarily feel like this, but I've caught myself a couple times not being in the moment and looking too far ahead, or thinking, oh, how is this going to impact my career in the long run or whatever. And not being able to just enjoy my time with my guys. I think one of the things I stress to my athletes now in high school is you're never going to get to play high school baseball again. Like you're not going to get to. Like, you're going to look back in 5 years and you're not going to have a high school team to play on, and it's going to really, really suck. It hurts. It sucks. And I told them, after I got done playing, the hardest experience of my life was standing for an anthem in a game I wasn't playing. It broke my heart. Like, to this, I remember the feeling. I couldn't even do it. I almost had to leave. So being able to enjoy that ride and understand that, baseball is fleeting. It's not going to be there forever. So while you're in it, have some fun doing it. Like, work your butt off. Absolutely. Like, I wouldn't do anything different. Like, I would still grind just as hard, if not find a way to work harder. But find some time to kind of smell the roses and enjoy it if you could, because I think a lot of guys, especially in today's society, when it's kind of instant gratification, like, oh, what's my perfect game ranking, or oh, what's my velo, oh, this and that. We kind of miss the opportunity to enjoy playing baseball, because baseball is fun. It's fun to be out there with your guys in the spring and, jack your elbow up on some hard dirt or whatever. Like, it's fun. And not being able to enjoy that, I think, is a crime against humanity as far as I'm concerned. So I would tell myself to enjoy it a little more, because I think sometimes I stress myself out too much. From a human standpoint, I would tell myself that it's not the end of the world, because, again, I thought too much. I really, really just tried so hard to be so good. And sometimes I took myself out of my element. So I think understanding that baseball is what you do and you love it and you're really, really passionate about it. But at the end of the day, it's baseball. I think now, having a little bit more life experience than college, high school, little league, me, I'm married now and my wife's pregnant. And so we're going to have twins. And it's like, just the joy I feel there, however many times I struck out, I couldn't care less. Like, it's fine. It's going to work out. You work as hard as you can. You do as much as you can to be successful. You grind, you bleed and you sweat for it 100%. But at the end of the day, don't let it ruin your life, because there's more to it. There's family, there's friends, there's kids, whatever it is. So I think just keeping things in perspective, I guess, to the overarching kind of umbrella answer would be to keep it all in perspective, just because baseball's fun. Baseball is not the end of the world. And baseball should be something you enjoy doing more than it is a chore, even if you're at the highest level. That's what I would tell myself, at least.
That's awesome. Well, hey, congrats on the twins coming. Pretty soon you'll have almost the entire infield just from your family here. You have a nice little family baseball team. Just
have a tough time keeping track of them all.
That's awesome, man. Well, that's exciting. Now, before we wind down the interview, was there anything you wanted to touch on that maybe we missed or didn't ask, or something you had going on you wanted to touch on?
If I could, just for a moment, if I could just do a shameless little self-plug.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I got a book coming out probably in the next few weeks. It's titled "Can't We All Just Get Along?" And basically what it is, it's my effort to kind of bridge the gap between the new analytics faction and kind of the old traditional thinking of baseball. Just because, in my opinion, and what spurred me to write the book was, there's just a lot of fighting going on, and just so many people are angry at other people and like, these are stupid, these stats are dumb, or why would you do that? These shifts are stupid, or batting average sucks, or whatever.
Right.
And I think there's so much time devoted to why the other guy is wrong. Nobody's looking at why anything's good, and so I break it down in a way that I kind of do a pro and anti-traditional section, and I do a pro and anti-sabermetric section. And then I do a section where I kind of say how I can use both at the same time and be better than either on its own. So it's just my way of kind of bringing the people back together, because I think baseball people generally are they're the most big picture kind of people, because they just deal with failure on a regular basis, and they generally don't take themselves so seriously. Except sometimes you'll turn on the TV and you'll just see dudes in suits at a desk just yelling at each other about why batting average and WOBA are like mortal enemies or whatever. And I think it's silly. So the book is my attempt to kind of, one, calm everybody down, and secondly, just show that there's aspects to all lines of thinking that work. And if you are more committed to being good than you are to being right, I think you can find a lot of diamonds in the rough where normally you're just kind of spitting on the feet of people you disagree with on TV. So I think it's an important conversation to have. It's not a conversation I see being had very often, especially not on social media. If you guys are on Twitter at any point, hitting Twitter is a war zone.
Right. Yeah.
Bombs away over there.
Oh, it's crazy. These guys get after it in a way that I never could on social media.
Right.
It's aggressive. So I wrote the book as more of a passive aggressive way of just saying, hey, everybody relax. Like, let's check this. Let's look at this objectively and not through the scope of a rifle and see what we think about these things. So that's my shameless plug. Should be out in a couple weeks. Obviously, if you follow my Instagram, I'll be announcing it as soon as it's ready.
We need a copy of that, Dean.
Yeah, absolutely. I was
I'll
going
send
to
that over to
say
you
we
for
should do that and do a giveaway with one. That's I'm excited to see that because you're right. You don't ever see. You always see people saying the negative part about it. And when we first started this podcast, we would always ask people about launch angle and what they thought of it. Luckily, there was a lot more positive than there was negative, but majority of the stuff out there when you talk about launch angle, it's just negative. But you don't see the good in it ever until you talk to somebody from like a backspin tee and you realize, oh, there's the science, and that's why it's good. Like you're right.
And
you never
most
hear
of it is misguided anyway. I think launch angle is one of the most underappreciated and misunderstood concepts in baseball. It's not like people talk about this launch angle swing. Like literally all it is, it's just a measurement. Like it's not even an approach. It's just a measurement. It's literally what just happened off the bat. That's what it is. And people are talking about, launch angle, these launch angle swings are so dumb. And I'm like, what is that? That doesn't even mean anything. Like every swing has a launch angle. Launch angle is just the angle at which the ball launches off your bat. Like it's pretty self-explanatory. It's not this revolution in the game. Guys have been dipping and driving or elevating and celebrating, whatever you want to call it. They've been doing it forever.
Yeah.
Just now it
finally got a name.
It's an analytical way to say the same thing, and now everybody's all freaking out about it. So I just think a lot of the stuff, people just say things because they see them and don't really understand. And so what I try to do with the book is at least assign a little bit of value or some sense to all these things that are sometimes misunderstood.
Now, what kind of cracks me up, though, Dean, is that everybody wants to have an opinion, a million of them, good or bad, about launch angle, but nobody even really understands what spin rate is and with pitchers and all the analytical stuff with Rapsodo and Driveline and that whole endeavor, because I think that's on like a level of like scientific stuff that most people can't wrap their head around, and they're like silent on it. I mean, and people are obsessed with these three layered videos where it's fastball, changeup, curveball, and you see them all coming out there. That right there is probably the coolest thing I've ever seen in the game, honestly. But like nobody even has an opinion or says anything about it because I don't think they understand it. But I think that technology and the way it's being used by like Trevor Bauer and the rest of them that use it, that is revolutionary, honestly.
Yeah, and it's coming. Like whether you like it or not, it's coming. I think there does need to be a balance. I think what ends up happening is a lot of times people who don't understand go full analytics, no feel. Like it's just, I am just a robot plugging numbers. And I think that's a mistake. But I also think that if you're just neglecting all of it and saying, nah, that's nothing, and then you answer like the tough questions after a loss, like, man, I had a feeling. Like I think that's also wrong. Like I think understanding, like applying the numbers with some feel, that's what you kind of see. You see like the Astros, or like AJ Hinch talks about it. Like the way he talks about it is he's not just droning on, like regurgitating information. He's applying it with prior knowledge and some feel as a baseball lifer. You know what I mean? He's not just looking at the spreadsheet going, I'll do that. Like he gets it, and I think that's the balance people need to find. Like if people get all mad about, the spin rate, and granted these things are, they're beneficial, but they have to be understood. And so many people are more worried about having their opinion heard than having their opinion even make sense in a lot of cases.
Right.
That I think the benefits are kind of misunderstood because it becomes more about I'm smarter than you and not this technology or this approach or this measurement can help my athletes get better. And I think the ego of man, just as it is and has been for eons, gets in the way of what is really, when looked at objectively, a beneficial advance in the game.
Yeah, no, and you talk about the feel. That video that Trevor Bauer had just had out where he was mic'd up pitching his bullpen and warming up pregame, and then he takes the mound and he's like, 91's not going to play. There's a feel to he knows what he wants to do because he's done it, a million times in the bullpen. But then that feel, he still understands the feel of how the pitch should feel coming out of his hand, not just because it's a 2-1 count, and the statistics and analytics say I should throw this pitch because this guy can't hit this pitch. So you still have to have the feel for that pitch, or even your swing that day. No matter what the analytics say, you still have to have that feel in your game. And that goes with defensively with the shifts and all that. I mean, you still got to, as a second baseman, you got to be able to take that in between hop from dirt to grass in the outfield, which is probably more difficult than most people even realize.
Yeah, that's a play. Who works on that play? Like,
Yeah.
if you never work on that play, that's a completely foreign movement. And just back to your point with the feel thing, I think that just being able to understand how to apply these numbers in a sensible way is important because, and in the book I talk about it a little bit, and this is me just making an accusation really without any kind of basis, and I admit it, that, you see all the new hires at the managerial positions last year. Out of the 6 new hires, 5 of them had never managed in the big leagues before. And so I'm thinking to myself, are they just like assuming that the analytics department is going to make the moves for them, and as long as they can pull the trigger, they're going to do it? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think that's also a mistake. I don't know whether or not that's happening. Like I said, and even when I write it in the book, I admit that, this is just me thinking out loud. But the big key that I think a lot of people are missing, and what made me want to write the book in the first place, was that you can't just do one. Like, you can't just be all numbers and not know how to apply them. And you can't just assume that your gut is going to be right with no basis in fact or science. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important to be able to make your decision based on what you think you know about the game. But also, if the numbers say something else, be intelligent or have enough feel to think, well, the matchup says I should bring this guy in. But he also threw 50 pitches the last 2 days in a row, so his stuff's probably not going to be good enough to get these outs anyway, so maybe I should go a different direction. Being able to kind of just have some feel and know when the numbers are just not lining up with kind of the human element and the fatigue or whatever the case may be, and then sometimes knowing when your mind is just wrong based on what the numbers say. I think it's a fine line to walk, and it's asking a lot, but they make a lot more money than I do. So I don't think it's asking that much. You know what I mean?
Right.
And not just managers in general, but just people who are offended or feel personally attacked when people either talk about, the spin rates or the launch angles or whatever, or who kind of condemn those things. I think if people would just take the time to understand, and really have a feel for what they're looking at or understand what they're looking at when it comes to the numbers, that they would see that it's all beneficial. Like they're all trying to do the same thing. Like, nobody's trying to change the game. They're just trying to make it better. They're just trying to clean it up. And that's what I think people miss most of the time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm looking forward to that book coming out. And on that note, what are some of your goals within the next 3 to 5 years? What's your goal as a coach with the book? Do you have another idea out there for another book down the road, do you think? What are some of those goals?
I'd like to win some. That'd be fun. I think that would be a good thing. As far as the book goes, like I said, this is not me trying to. I mean, really, nothing I do is me trying to let's see how famous this can make me, or let's see how many job offers I can get off this. I'm just doing kind of what I feel would be a cool thing to do, whether it's the Instagram or whatever. I would love to do some more infield specific literary work. I don't know. I've seen some guys, some hitting books and some things like that. I don't see a lot of stuff really breaking down infield play, because I think defense is one of the lost arts of baseball these days, just because hitting and pitching are way more sexy, and I get it.
Right.
But I think that would be something that, there would be a need for in the game somewhere. But overall, I think just continue to improve as a coach, just find better ways to connect to my athletes and get more out of them, and just keep learning, because at the end of the day, I'm a 26-year-old coach. Like, how much can I really know at this point? I got a lot of learning to do. So that's kind of where I'm at, just trying to find a way to keep getting better. Career wise, I'm just trying to win where I'm at. I don't know where I'm going to be in 3 to 5 years. I'm just trying to win today, to be honest. Get better, find ways to improve, maybe write another book or two, get some more information out there, keep posting on Instagram. Maybe talk to you guys a couple more times and just kind of see what happens.
Right on.
Now, do you have any ambitions to be a college coach or a positional coach at the minor league level, or work your way up? Are there any things that you're interested in, or do you, kind of just foresee yourself doing what you're kind of doing right now?
No, I would love that. I'd be lying if I said I didn't think it would be awesome to be, with a professional organization or in a big league dugout in 20, 30 years, whatever it is. But like I said, I'm not really going to worry about that today. I just hope that, my body of work will speak for itself when it's time to be judged. And I'm just going to try and do a good job, and whatever that leads to, it'll lead to. And I'm not really going to sweat the small stuff to that point.
Now, if you can, for all of our listeners, Dean, who may not be familiar with you, where can they find you on social media, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, if you have a YouTube page with drills and videos, or a website? Where can people find the book when it ultimately comes out?
The book will be available on Amazon, and I'll have a link on my account as well. But yeah, I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Coach Dean Wilson. I'm working on maybe some YouTube stuff, but that's not up yet, so stay tuned there. But Instagram, Twitter. The book will be available. There'll be a link on my Instagram. It'll be through Amazon generally. So they can find that there. They can find me on Instagram for the most part.
Nice. Awesome. Well, this is our last question. We ask every single guest on the show, and I'm always excited to know the answer to this one. Now, you played some professional ball. If you had one more shot to play professionally, you had one more at bat, what song would you choose as your walk-up song to the plate?
All right, so this song, and I remember as soon as you asked me this, I knew my answer already, because I used the same song all through college and pro ball. So my dad was in a band in the 80s, and they enjoyed a little success kind of in the tri-state area around Philly and stuff. So I took one of their songs, and that was my walk-up. And so I started doing that in college, and I used it all through college, used it all through pro ball. And that's not something I would ever stray from, because if nothing else, it gives me a sense of home.
And what is this song called?
It's called Bad Boy.
And you want to give a shout out to the name of your dad's band back then?
Yes, they were called Ivory Tower. So Bad Boy by Ivory Tower is my walk-up song. So shout out to my dad for pumping out the jams for me to walk up to.
Nice. That's so awesome. Cool, man. Well, we really appreciate it, and had a lot of fun talking to you, and definitely wish you the best of luck with the book and with your team this year, and I hope you guys get some better weather coming up here soon so you can get outdoors here and start coaching.
Yeah, you and me both, man. I appreciate you having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you, Dean. We wish you nothing but the best, man. We will stay in touch, and we really, really look forward to getting a copy of that book, digging into it a little bit as well. So we'll stay in touch, and best of luck this season.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you.
All right, see you, Dean. I love that song. I love that song because it sounds like Motley Crue, and not like but a similar band, the Motley Crue. And
it's like music you would listen, like when we were in high school, it was music that would be on like in the weight room when you were working out. You know what I mean? Like, or a football mix before a game. You know what I mean? I love it. That was a good choice.
Yeah, it's a very good choice. So we want to thank Dean for coming on. Shared so much good information, and I loved every second of it. So make sure you definitely share that with everybody that you know. You can find us on all social media at Going Yard Podcast, except for Twitter or at GY Podcast. It's so hard for me to say that.
Yeah, I don't.
Oh, it's okay.
I don't know if we can.
It's
do
easy
better,
though. It's simple. It's simple. GY Podcast on Twitter. Make sure you follow us.
And it looks like GYP.
It does.
That's why we kind of went with it. So bear with us, people.
Nope.
We're trying to do the best we can.
No, you're good.
If you can, follow us on, subscribe and like us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Podbean, and Google Play. Leave us a 5-star review if you could. That way we can climb those podcast rankings. And also check out our website, goingyardpodcast.com. You can find all our social media content on there, along with all of the sites to download and listen to all these episodes.
That's right. So that's a wrap of this episode. So from all of us here at the Going Yard Podcast, and for Coach Dean Wilson, I'm Dan.
And I'm Tyler. See ya.
Later.